So the first big company I built was called Gym Launch. It was a licensing business for gym owners, as in I had a model and I would license that model to them. They would use those things, they'd make more money. The average gym would make an extra $100,000 a year in profit. Business at its peak was worth about $150 million. And then COVID hurt that business, and I ended up selling it for $46.2 million to American Pacific Group, which is a private equity firm out of San Francisco. The first 10 customers I got from Gym Launch, I got somebody to pay a VA in the Philippines to scrape CrossFit's database and then send me the list of emails. I then uploaded them to Facebook, made a lookalike audience off of those, marketed to get a webinar, which no one watched, and then I had 80 leads from people who had opted in, and none of them bought or scheduled a call. And so I looked up every one of the emails manually, and I friended them on Facebook, I messaged them, and then I got a few of them on the phone to pay me $500 to go out to fly to their gym and actually do the turnaround. Once I started the licensing version of the model, which is the one that really gave me the scale, I was able to sell something that had virtually 100% margins. The first month I think I did 120,000 in sales, and the next month I did 300-ish, and then high fours, and then 780, and all I was doing was just selling more units, and then we hit $1 million the next month. We would look at whatever problems the gym owners that we were with were currently suffering from. So it could be they're suffering from churn, or they could be suffering from margin issues, or they could be suffering from they're not getting enough leads. Close rates aren't as high as we want them to be. We would then create a hypothesis around what we thought might work. We would survey the community and say who has the best conversion rates, if that's what we wanted to fix, and then we'd invite 20 of them onto a call. We would take all the notes to figure out what things they were all doing, and here's the important point. We didn't say, great, we're gonna do all these things. We try to see the few things that they were all doing. Then we'd say, hey guys, this is a big deal. This is worth the cost of change. You're gonna have a demonstrated long-term benefit to the business. For context, my best gym did about $600,000 a year. Our average gym, who's a gym lord, made $600,000 a year. Big picture is that the product has to be exceptional. If your customers are in love with your product, which takes more time, because people are like, oh, you threw this thing together. It's it took 6 years for me to put all those pieces together, and then finally be able to monetize that deliverable. And that little inch between good and great is years. But the return you get on it from the word of mouth that compounds is hard to fathom. One of the other big secrets of Gym Launch was that we had a very different approach to acquiring customers. The traditional model of most businesses in general is loss leader, you get someone in for some sort of free thing, you lose money on the acquisition, you make it up in LTV. I came with a different model, and I've since done that in every single business I have. So this is one of the important frameworks that I want to pass to you, and it's something called client financed acquisition. So client financed acquisition basically means you get the customers to finance the acquisition of the next customer. So all you have to do is have enough money to get the first sale. And if you make more in the first sale than the cost to acquire that customer and the cost to fulfill that customer, plus the cost to fulfill the next customer and the cost to acquire the next customer, you eliminate capital as a constraint in the business. You can put $1 in and get 2 customers back, then that next customer buys you 2 more and 2 more and 2 more. All my gyms were able to just crush everyone else because we could outspend them. I've taken that aggressive acquisition perspective to every one of the businesses that I've had. We had many, many terrible things that happened during Gym Launch. One, we had COVID, which was tough, for gym owners in general. 1/3 of all of our clients went out of business. Another thing that we did that was really bad was we overhired for our support. I had hired an inexperienced director of customer service. She was a frontline rep that we just promoted all the way through. High work ethic, but no experience. And so she hired 35 reps, and we only needed 5. So we had to lay off 30 people. And then that became a thorn in our side for the next 2-3 years because our glass door got smashed. The biggest reason Gym Launch was successful, one is that it was timing. We identified arbitrage on Facebook ads before anyone else did, and we created a turnkey system around how to monetize it. I was running ads on Facebook in 2013. You could put a girl with a bikini and say, click here now. It was the Wild West. The second thing, because of that arbitrage, the average gym was taking home an additional $30,000 in cash in their first 30 days. That was the average. If you take a business where the average business owner is making $36,000 a year in profit, and then you add $30,000 in the first month of working with them, you don't need to worry about marketing. Technically, my return on marketing was 100 to 1 for the first 18 months of the business. But it's because I probably could have just not marketed at all, and I would have had the amount of people that came in. So who knows if the ads were doing anything. But everybody from the outside was like, this guy's ads are everywhere. He's killing it. So many people who are copycats, Mickey Mouse, gimmick, bullshit. People who just used old versions of our stuff to try and sell at all the stuff you would imagine. All those guys went out of business because they didn't have the depth. Prestige Labs was my second big company, which actually was really a sister company to Gym Launch. We built the whole thing of an affiliate base that we acquired through Gym Launch. And so the first month of being fully operational did 1.7 million. I didn't want to sell supplements for a very long time because I was like, supplements, you just need to eat right and work out. This woman wouldn't leave my office. She's like, my friend says I need supplements. Fine. So I wrote her a list. I was like, go get this stuff, go away. She came back the next day with the things and she was like, I just want to make sure I got the right stuff. And I saw the receipt and it had $700 on the receipt. And the thing that I had sold her was $400. And I was like, fuck that. I'm gonna sell supplements. So I would recruit a gym owner and I would say, hey, we're teaching you all this marketing and sales stuff over here. If you just sell every person supplements, it will cover the cost to acquire a customer just from the physical products. And the beautiful thing with selling physical products is that there's no added fulfillment. One of the problems is the more you sell, the more you have to deliver, right? And so it's kind of this double-edged sword where the moment you swipe the credit card, you're like, oh shit, now I have to deliver on this, right? They didn't have to do anything. They literally just swiped the credit card and then we managed centrally, we would ship it direct to the consumer. I wanted to create a brand only gym owners sold, so no one else could sell it. We priced it on our home site higher. We priced it 30% higher on the main site, so there were significant savings. On top of that, we gave them a very good selling system because I learned a lot about selling supplements. I made it a recurring subscription, so now they got to have 2 recurring subscriptions per customer. I picked the first 10 customers from our distribution base already. So I rolled out 10 locations, and then the next month I rolled out 20 or 30. Next month I rolled out another 20 or 30, and then we did the big launch to everyone. There's lots of little things that we did that were gym specific that no other supplement company could do, which has given us a nice moat in that space. Cost me $4 million to start Prestige Labs. About $1 million of that went to the tech. So we created an entire point of sale for supplements that was specifically made for gyms. So every gym would get a retail kit, so they'd have a full wall of products. They would have a kiosk, which is a stand with an iPad type thing on it. Shopify didn't really exist then. We had to build this whole thing. And then the other $3-ish million went into just product. The biggest difficulties with it is supply chain. So like if you run out of one ingredient on one product, like you can't sell the product. There are also legal firms that will buy all your products and try and test to find something that's off or underrepresented or whatever. There's predatory law firms that as soon as you have a patent, they'll just try and find people to sue and they'll just like basically rev share on the amount of money they can get. The end consumer is just not sticky. And that's just because people don't stick with fitness stuff in general for a long time. So the biggest lesson I have for you guys, Mosey Nation, around Prestige Labs is that I probably shouldn't have done it. That's the real. It is a good business, but I think that if I had allocated more time to just making Gym Launch better, Gym Launch would have been bigger. And because Gym Launch stopped growing the year I launched Prestige Labs, I just became CEO of 2 companies rather than CEO of 1. The third business I started, useallen.com, still around today, doing great. I saw where chat was going and I saw where AI and machine learning were going a few years ago. And I figured if I were able to aggregate all of the data from every single type of small business, all scheduling brick and mortar in-person appointments, I'd be able to predictively show what days of the week, what times of day, what kind of follow-up sequences got the most amount of people to show up. And since we were compensated on a percentage of people that showed up, we were highly incentivized to solve that problem. And I learned a ton about how to get the most throughput for leads. And I've used that in every one of the portfolio companies that we have. And you can usually add 20, 30, 40% to the throughput on ads, simply your scheduling process. I first started it to solve the problem for gym owners because one of the biggest constraints is that people don't work their leads. Amazing, I know. But the average gym was getting 9% of leads in the door when they had to work them manually. We were able to get just under 20% of leads in the door without them doing anything. And the average front desk person costs $2,000 plus a month, and we could do it for a fraction of that. Sold the first 10 customers of Allen by going to our distribution base and saying, hey, do you want to try this thing? What was interesting is that we very quickly realized that we couldn't expand outside of our distribution base. The breakthrough was that I realized that we needed to get agencies on board rather than getting small businesses on board, because they'd be like, great, I can work my leads. How do I get leads? And then we're like, oh shit, they don't know how to get leads. So then we started selling agencies, which had another degree of leverage, because if you sell an agency, they could have 50 small business owners underneath of them. I did 2 webinars with people who had big agency audiences, so now you go up another level. I could make 1 pitch and in 1 pitch get 1,000 customers. That was when this thing really took off. I did 2 pitches and within 6 months we were doing 1.7 also, ironically, per month through the software company. Allen was the business that I probably learned the most lessons from. I ended up selling that business as well, 75% of it to a strategic buyer who's still running it and doing a good job with it, and hopefully they'll have a big exit in a few years. And that was an all stock deal, so under NDA, I can't tell you, but I can tell you we did 12 million in the trailing 12 months before the sale. That being said, lesson 1 is that you need to have an in-house CTO if you're gonna get into software. I developed software for Prestige Labs. I used the exact same development shop to make the software for Allen. I regret that. Development shops, honestly, they're about as close to a complete scam as you can come to. Because if you really are gonna build a software company, you need to build a software company. Like, that's it. Like, you need to build a software company. It's like having a marketing agency and having a white labeled marketing agency doing all your delivery. It doesn't make any sense. Number 2 is that you wanna run pricing surveys early. because we unlocked 4 times the pricing power by simply repackaging how we charge. Exploring different ways to charge based on usage, based on recurring fees, different KPIs. This is especially true with software because there's so many different ways you can charge compared to maybe traditional service. The third thing is having aligned incentives with your customers often just makes you more money. And so that business had a tremendous amount of scale because we had so much alignment with every single stakeholder. The small business owner wanted people to show up, the agency owner wanted people to show up, and we got paid based on show up. So everybody was aligned top down. The fourth thing, throughput on appointments when you're scheduling for sales calls or in-person appointments. The amount of days per week that you are open, the hours that you are open, and the increments of time matter a lot, like 50 to 200% would be like, marketing doesn't work for me, and they had one time slot for an hour per week that they were willing to take new customers on. That's just stupid.